Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Crazy Parents Podcast. I want to give you an update first on our son, Kale. He's doing much better since the last time I made a podcast. Um, he's very much more attentive. He's playing with his younger brother a lot more. Um, and he can focus on people's faces now. The brain damage that he had caused to him when he was 12 months old is still very much present. He's not able to talk still, but we're working with him with various treatments that I talked about in my other podcasts. And as we get the money to start new treatments, they'll just keep building because they're all health based. None of them are drug based. So there's no negative side effects to any treatment that we're giving him. And most of all, I appreciate the prayers. So many prayers. People keep telling me all the time, and I know it's doing so much good for him, and just for us too. Just we're getting through this together with the help of everybody out there, and also financially helping with the treatments. I appreciate it so much. Today, I wanted to pose a question. This is a question that I ask myself over and over, like maybe thousands of times in the last few months since I realized and found out what happened to our son Kale is how could this happen? Where's the failure in the medical system that allowed this to be possible? It's and not possible, just possible, but so prevalent in just the destruction of the health and well-being of of human beings around the world, especially the United States. And I was thinking, okay, how did this happen? Well, directly, how it happened is I listened to my child's doctor and trusted when she said that these vaccines that I'm about to give your child are perfectly safe. There's no chance of harm. There's nothing to worry about. So I trusted the doctor because I thought, okay, she must have had tons of research and decades of schooling and all this stuff that she went through and made sure that, if she's going to tell somebody a life or death possibility situation, I, for myself, I would have to have all my ducks in a row before I would give someone advice like that at that high of a level. Um, and I was thinking, okay, if there's a failure where I trusted the doctor, but where did she get her information to go through to make her recommendation and base her decision making process on? And then I found that out. I did some research. Okay, most doctors just go to the CDC website and then there's just recommendations by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and that's just the go-to. And there's a few other ones, but that's the big one. And I'm like, okay, oh, okay, that's a big relief. I'm like, yeah. Well, wait, but where does the CDC get their information um, to put together their recommendations for the doctors? And like, okay, I had to research that, figure that out. I'm like, okay, so the CDC and these other big organizations, WHO and all that stuff, they get their information from medical journals where they publish these these papers that medical researchers write. Like, oh, okay, wow, that's a big relief. Oh man, the medical journals. But wait, so where do the people who write the articles in these medical journals, where do they get their information from to base their writings on? And that's where it all falls apart. The answer to that question is so sickening. It just makes my stomach turn every time I think about it. This horrendous, horrific disaster to humanity that I've ever come across.
Has relied on, being a meticulous researcher, is the articles that have been published in the academic literature. in medicine, those articles, the peer review is a sham. So it's all built on sand.
So he may have written his book.
Wait a minute. You said
researching weird information.
all the papers are all built on sham.
All the papers are peer reviewed. The peer reviewers don't have access to the data. The drug companies own the data.
Okay, so then let me go back to the question I was asking you. So you're on the inside. We're not.
Yeah.
That revelation just took my breath away. So you might not know who this guy is, but he was involved in a lot of litigation against pharmaceutical companies, which, they pay several $billions a year, all of them do, in lawsuits because of all the harm that they do to people. And when there's litigation, there's a lawsuit against a company, they have to turn over all the information. It's called discovery when there's a court case. And this guy is a doctor, and he was helping to investigate these drug companies. So he had access to all the information, and that's how he knows what he knows. And so he had a life-threatening illness about 15 months ago, and I think it woke him up enough to just say, hey, I don't know how many days I have left on this earth. I just want to get the word out of the truth. So he wrote some books, and he's going on tour and just telling what he knows and what he's seen.
But the biggest journals are playing in this financial arena where the editors have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize their profits, and they're doing it.
Yeah, but who's exposing them? Who is?
So this is one of the most crazy things, okay? So this is about money, and that's sickening because these are the lives and health and brains of our babies, our parents, our siblings, our neighbors. These decisions that people are making. Now, when a corporation is formed, like these drug companies that make vaccines and these drugs that cost thousands or millions of dollars in some cases, when a corporation is formed, there's only one goal for the corporation. It's to maximize, as they say, to create as much money as possible. That they're required. That's the entire purpose of a corporation being created. If anybody tells you that that's their mission is anything other than that, they're lying to you. If someone says, the mission of our corporation is to be kind to people. Now, you don't need to form a corporation to be kind to people. You can just do it. Corporations are formed to maximize the amount of money that they can make for everybody involved. It's within the limits of the law, and that's a key term that we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
And yet he's willing to make recommendations with inadequate data.
Why is he giving it to you, though, knowing you're a doctor?
He knows he doesn't have the data. He knows nobody has the data. You have to be in litigation to get the data. He knows that, and yet he's willing to participate in this system where peer review is meaningless, yet doctors have to practice in accord with so-called evidence-based medicine.
So who is he? Whose orders is he following? Is this the FDA? Is it the hospital's guidelines? Is it whose guidelines is he following?
Yeah, good question. So what he's following is really, there was this wonderful book written by a nuclear physicist turned philosopher of science, Thomas Kuhn, in 1962, wrote a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And what he showed is that when there are experts who rely on a certain body of knowledge, you're not allowed to become an expert unless you adhere to the unwritten rules of the legitimacy of the science. And this is coming to play in American medicine. The docs, even the academic leaders, like the cardiologist I was talking to, believe that somehow there's this magical transformation of non-vetted data into real evidence that he should trust and recommend for his patients and for the doctors he's teaching. It's what appears to be the truth of the science is sociologically determined. It's not scientifically determined.
That is so scary. And if you just think about a few examples, you could put any example in there, but it's so true. Um, that it's a mob mentality, but in the science field. So if you don't go along with the mob, you won't be in the in crowd. It's kind of like the cool kids. So if you go against the flow and say vaccines are dangerous, for example, oh no, you're going against the cool flow of the societal norm. So we can't do that. And by the way, if we keep it that way, our company will get hundreds of billions of dollars every year from pumping these little kids full of vaccines.
Allergist, if I'm making an allergy drug. You're saying that's the business model. It's not thousands and thousands of doctors paying subscription. Because if it was, Forbes would compete with Fortune and business people would subscribe to one or the other based on which they think is better information. You're saying that they're really not operating publications. They're operating printing services that are reprinting articles for the medical establishment driven by the pharmaceutical company.
Correct. There is some subscription fees, but they're not the major thing. The major sources of income are selling reprints and selling advertising to the manufacturers.
But then
So this gets crazier and crazier as you go down this rabbit hole. The medical journals that doctors and the CDC are basing their decisions on tell people life and death decisions, medical decisions they should make. These medical journals are getting their funding from the drug companies who make vaccines and drugs, either through buying their journal and redistributing it to doctors and to their sales reps to go out to doctors and pass out these flyers, these journals. And not only that, what's way worse is they're advertising their own products inside these medical journals that doctors are basing their decisions on, and the CDC is writing its recommendations to the entire United States on, and the WHO, World Health Organization, is writing their recommendations to the entire world. It's all just like some stupid advertising scam. And these drugs, it doesn't matter that there's almost always some kind of natural substitute, some kind of natural vitamin or herb or something that works better, but they can't patent a vitamin. They can't patent an herb. So if they just show what is in the ingredients, it's not protected. Anybody can just go out and make it. And so they can't charge whatever money they want. So because these drugs are so dangerous and the vaccines especially are so dangerous, they're just trying to make a big profit, so they have to control the information. Every good communist dictator understands if you control the information, you control the people. So they control the information. They stop the information. That's why YouTube is censored. That's why Facebook is censored. Anything, all these censoring things, because anything that you talk about against vaccines or against the drug companies will get censored. And then when you just watch regular news, whatever that is, CNN and just the normal old school stupid channels, they're all getting most of their funding from the drug companies too and the vaccine companies. So they're obviously not going to say anything bad about them. They're only going to talk bad about, oh, vitamins are stupid. Vitamins are dangerous. Don't take vitamins. Don't take herbal supplements. Don't worry about don't be healthy. Don't go to the gym and get in shape. That's stupid. That's not good. Have a positive image of yourself and take all these drugs. That's what you'll hear. And then all the truth, the actual truth about how dangerous these vaccines are, how dangerous these drugs are. I'm not saying that there isn't a few medicines out there that are helpful, that could be better, but we're not given the truth, the facts. It's being controlled by the drug companies and the vaccine companies. And those little flyers that you see at the doctor's office, those are basically created because they're funded by the same companies that make all these things. And then not only that, not only are all the information being funded and funneled by the companies that are making the profits off the vaccine, these tons of vaccines that are being pumped into our babies, and all these drugs are being pumped into our parents and our brothers and sisters. Um, but um, they're also literally just giving the doctors and the hospitals kickbacks. What are kickbacks? They're bribes. It's another word for a bribe. So if you recommend, if you just write this prescription for this drug, we'll give you $300. If you write the ones for this medicine that is just old and cheap and just works and this your grandma used as a remedy, we won't make a lot of money, so you don't get any kickbacks from that. You don't get any bribes. It's sickening.
In the label, it says you need to you should enter your patient in a registry, but it doesn't say enter them in the CMS registry. It says enter them in the ALSNet registry. The ALSNet registry is sponsored by the Alzheimer's Foundation. The two biggest contributors to the pharmaceutical contributors to the Alzheimer's Foundation are the two drug companies that are making these new drugs that are fantastically expensive. And the ALSNet registry is going to pay doctors $2,500 for signing up for this and $300 per visit for every visit that they register in the ALSNet registry. So the ALSNet registry is going to buy its way over the CMS registry, and now this drug company sponsored organization is going to be determining what data they collect and how they're going to report it.
This is basically just turn the medical industry into a giant mafia. It's literally all it's done. It's completely insane. It's all based on bribes. It's completely rigged. The entire world is getting more and more unhealthy, especially United States, because of these flaws. I don't know if you call them flaws. They're literally fatal flaws in the system of our medical regulation, or I should say non-medical regulation. They focus so much on regulations of finances and I don't know, like where you can put a water line or something or build a house. But when it comes to literal life or death situations, like, oh no, it's just the Wild West, whatever. We don't need to regulate it. We don't need to keep these companies in check. But why is that? Now that doesn't make any sense to a normal person. It's like, no, why how could this should be the most important thing that the government and all the people in positions of power should be watching out for, because this is literally life or death decisions that people are being recommended to make every day when they go to the doctor. And the answer is, I know this is really stupid and simple, but it's bribes. They're just being bribed with money. And you might say, no, it can't be. They can't just be bribing all these highly powerful people, these politicians, people on, these high levels on these organizations that control the medical school curriculum and all that. And they can't just be bribing them. There'd be investigations right and left. We'd hear about it all the time. Well, here's the thing. There's a system, a scam that they've run. It's a legal loophole. They've figured out to bribe these people in the highest levels of position of power to influence the medical politics of how these non-regulations keep happening in government and how they control teaching the medical students. Literally, they're controlling the information they teach to medical students, which in a few years will become your doctor. Now, here's how the scheme works. They'll find a person in a high position of power, either in politics or in the medical industry or in the the scholastic industry, where they come up with a curriculum for teaching. Okay, and they'll take them out to lunch, and this representative from a pharmaceutical company who makes vaccines and drugs, and they'll be like, "Oh, hey Bob, how you doing? Oh man, I haven't seen you so long. How long's it been since we talked? Oh, it must have been like 15 years. Oh, let's go out to lunch. Okay, yeah, man, you're just doing so good in your career, man. You're in the highest position, and you're, of influence. Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. But you've been at this for a long time, and you're probably gonna retire soon, right? Maybe the next 2, 3 years, you're probably gonna look at retiring. Don't you wanna like go to stay at your vacation house all of the year and play with your grandkids and stuff? And they're like, oh yeah, but I still got some debt I gotta pay off, so I'm gonna be doing this for another decade, I'm sure, at least. Well, if there would be some way that you could kind of, we kind of like we like the way the laws are now and the way things work now. So if you could kind of like, just kind of keep things the way they are, you don't have to push anybody or yell at anybody. Just kind of, when things come up, just try to smooth them out and just keep things the way they are, because they've been going great for us, you know. And, if you do decide to retire in 2 or 3 years, we'll have a nice little seat on our board waiting for you, and you'll be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And all you got to do is show up to 3 or 4 meetings every year. And you know what? With technology these days, most of those meetings you could probably just zoom in. You don't even have to come in to the office for the meeting. And then you could play with your kids all day and your grandkids. You don't have to work another day in your life. Just kind of keep us in mind when these decisions come up, to just try to like rock the boat. We don't want to rock the boat. We like the way things are. And if you don't think this is happening, here's a true to life example of this happening this very minute.
She gets fired, and Alan Garber, who's been the provost of Harvard, gets appointed the temporary president. Okay, so that's what happened. Those are the facts. Alan Garber's salary as provost has been about $940,000 a year. I assume it's market value. I don't have a complaint. Since 2017, he's been on the board of 2 pharmaceutical companies. He's the provost of Harvard University, and he's been on the board of 2 pharmaceutical companies, and his annual salary from these 2 board positions is more than his salary from Harvard. It's $960,000.
Okay.
One of those 2 companies is Vertex Pharmaceuticals. They're selling their drug that is a revolutionary drug that decreases the pulmonary consequences of cystic fibrosis by about 14%, and they're selling this drug for $322,000. It costs them to make less than $6,000. So we've got the provost of Harvard University in a position of direct conflict of interest in talking about the public health consequences of this. Now, this hit me hard because I was teaching, I'm not on the faculty anymore, but I stepped down a year ago. But I was teaching healthcare policy at Harvard for many years. And one of the case studies we taught all the first-year students at Harvard Medical School was, if Medicaid ran out of money, what the students in each seminar group, if Medicaid ran out of money, what services would you cut to have the least impact, to engage the students with this?
Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you cut out eyeglasses every other year? Do you cut out transportation to doctors? So forth. What they didn't talk about is that Vertex's drug costs $322,000 and costs $6,000 to make, and somebody ought to be negotiating with these guys.
So I want to thank you for listening to this or watching this edition of the Crazy Parents Podcast. I'm going to have a lot more stuff for you very soon. And I care so much about getting you the information that's going to help you and your family and your friends. For communication, we've set up an account on x.com, so please go there for communicating with us on this podcast. I really appreciate anything that you want to discuss. It's at Crazy Parents Pod on x.com. Until next time, keep seeking the truth and don't stop until you find it.